The warning. The Great Hall of Concordia Prime stretched wider than most planetary capitals. Crystalline walls caught and bent light from 3 nearby stars, creating patterns that shifted across the assembled delegates. Representatives from 47 species sat in their designated sections, some breathing oxygen, others methane, each protected by their own atmospheric shields. This was the Galactic Council, and today they would decide the fate of humanity's application for membership. Ambassador Thelvan of the Karathi Empire stood at the central podium. His forearms gestured gracefully as he presented humanity's case. The holographic displays showed Earth's cities, their technological achievements, their cultural diversity. To Thelvan, humans seemed like any other emerging species, ambitious, curious, and eager to join the galactic community. The humans have passed all preliminary assessments, Thelvan said, his translator rendering his clicking speech into the common tongue. Their technology, while primitive in some areas, shows remarkable innovation. They have achieved faster-than-light travel independently. They have developed artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and quantum computing. I recommend we grant them provisional membership. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Some delegates nodded their various appendages in agreement. Others remained skeptical. The Karathi had sponsored dozens of species over the millennia, and most had integrated smoothly into galactic society. Then the doors exploded inward. Guards moved instantly. Weapons raised but stopped when they recognized the intruder. Commander Shartok of the Xylon Confederacy stumbled into the chamber. His scales were scarred and burned, missing in patches. One eye was gone, replaced by a crude mechanical implant. He had been a war hero once before his species made their terrible mistake. You cannot allow the humans into this council. Shartok's voice echoed through the hall. His translator crackled with interference, damaged like everything else about him. I came here to warn you. You must reject them. You must push them away and never provoke them. Counselor Vextra of the Zephyron hegemony laughed, a sound like grinding metal. The Zephyron were massive beings, each standing 3 meters tall with armored exoskeletons. They had conquered 40 systems and had never known defeat. The Xylon Confederacy grows more pathetic every cycle. First you lose a war to primitives, and now you interrupt our proceedings with paranoid ravings. You don't understand. Shartok limped forward, and the guards let him pass. Everyone knew his story. 30 years ago, the Xylon had encountered humans at the edge of mapped space. A territorial dispute had erupted over a mineral-rich asteroid field. The Xylon, confident in their superior numbers and technology, had attacked a human mining station. They killed everyone aboard, 347 miners and their families. The humans had responded with a fury that stunned the galaxy. They hunted us, Shartok continued, his voice breaking. For 30 years they hunted us. We tried to make peace. We offered reparations. We offered territory. They refused everything. They said we had killed their children and now they would kill ours. Spare us the war stories, another counselor called out. Your species attacked first. You paid the price for aggression. That's how conflict works. No. Shartok slammed his fist on the nearest surface. You don't understand what they are. Every other species in this galaxy fights until it's unprofitable, until the cost becomes too high, until surrender offers a better outcome than continued war. Humans don't think that way. They fight until they win, or until they're extinct. There is no middle ground. Ambassador Thelvan tried to restore order. Commander Shartok, your concerns are noted, but the humans have been peaceful in all our interactions. They seek trade, cultural exchange, and mutual defense. They are not the monsters you describe, because you haven't given them a reason to be. Shartok pulled up his own holographic display, showing burned Xylon worlds. We thought we were teaching them a lesson when we destroyed that mining station. Instead, we awakened something terrible. They tracked down every ship, every commander, every politician who had anything to do with the attack. They didn't just defeat our military, they dismantled our entire civilization. Then perhaps you shouldn't have attacked them, Vextra said coldly. The Zephyron have crushed dozens of upstart species. The key is overwhelming force applied immediately. Show them the futility of resistance and they submit. It's basic military doctrine. That's what we thought. Shartok was pleading now. We sent our entire fleet after their response. We outnumbered them 20-1. We had better shields, better weapons, better everything. And we lost. Do you know why? Because they don't fight like us. They don't have rigid military doctrines. They adapt in real time. Every battle they learned. Every defeat made them stronger. And they never stopped coming. The council chamber filled with derisive laughter. Counselor Thex of the ancient Lumina Collective spoke, her voice crystalline and cold. Commander, the Lumina have existed for 50,000 years. We have seen countless species rise and fall. Humans are newcomers, barely evolved from their planetary cradle. This persistence you describe is simply inexperience. They will learn, as all species do, that some conflicts cannot be won. You're wrong, Shartok said quietly. Their entire evolutionary history prepared them for this. On their world, the predators who gave up starved. The prey who gave up died. For millions of years, survival meant persistence above all else. It's coded into their very genetics. They call it perseverance and treat it as their greatest virtue. How quaint, Vextra said. Primitive virtues for a primitive species. This council has stood for 10,000 years because we understand the mathematics of power. We know when to fight and when to negotiate. These humans will learn the same lessons, or they will be taught them. Ambassador Thelvan tried one more time to mediate. Commander Shartok, I understand your trauma, but surely you must see that your situation was unique. You attacked their civilians without provocation. The Council would never make such a mistake. We operate on principles of law and mutual respect. Shartok looked around the chamber at the assembled delegates. He saw the dismissal in their expressions, the arrogance born of millennia of dominance. They had no concept of what humanity represented because they had never encountered anything like them before. I came here because I thought you deserved a warning, Shartok said. My people are scattered now, refugees among the stars. We live in fear that somehow, somewhere, a human will discover one of our hidden colonies and finish what they started. They told us they would hunt us forever, and we didn't believe them either. Not until it was too late. This council will not be intimidated by ghost stories, Vextra declared. Guards, remove this broken creature from our presence. As the guards escorted Shartok out, he turned back one last time. You're making a mistake. The worst mistake in galactic history. I pray to the old gods that you never learn the truth of my words. But I fear you will, and when that day comes, remember that someone tried to warn you. The doors sealed behind him and the council returned to its deliberations. Within an hour, they had reached their decision. Humanity's application for membership was denied. Furthermore, economic sanctions would be imposed. The humans needed to be contained, civilized, taught their place in the galactic order. Ambassador Thelvan cast the only dissenting vote, though he couldn't say exactly why. Something in Shartok's eyes had disturbed him, not fear, but the terrible certainty of someone who had seen the future and knew there was no way to prevent it. The message was transmitted to Earth within the day. The humans received it in silence. That silence, Thelvan would later reflect, should have been their first warning. The provocation Admiral Kethresh of the Zephyron hegemony studied the tactical display with satisfaction. Before him floated a holographic representation of Mars, humanity's first colony world. 3,200,000 humans lived there, most in the massive domed cities that dotted the rust-colored surface. They had no idea what was coming. All ships report ready, Admiral, his tactical officer announced. Kethresh nodded, his armored plates shifting with the movement. The Zephyron had built their empire on swift, brutal demonstrations of power. When a species needed correction, you didn't negotiate or issue warnings. You struck hard enough that they never forgot the lesson. The Council has been too soft, Kethresh said to his officers. Sanctions and diplomatic pressure mean nothing to primitives. They understand only strength. Today we teach humanity its place in the galactic order. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the human colony. They're asking us to state our intentions. Ignore it. Commence bombardment. The Zephyron battle group consisted of 37 warships, each one larger than anything humanity had built. Their plasma cannons could burn continents. Their kinetic weapons could crack planetary crusts. Against the few orbital defense platforms Mars possessed, the outcome was never in doubt. The bombardment lasted 4 hours. When it ended, Mars's domes were shattered, its atmosphere venting into space. 3,200,000 humans died that day. Men, women, children. The Zephyron made no distinction. This was a message written in blood and fire. Kethresh recorded a message and broadcast it across all human frequencies. Attention, humans of Earth. This is Admiral Kethresh of the Zephyron hegemony. Mars colony has been eliminated in response to your refusal to accept the Council's wisdom. You will immediately open your systems to council oversight. You will dismantle your military. You will submit to our authority. Failure to comply within one planetary rotation will result in similar action against Earth itself. You have been warned. The message was transmitted simultaneously to the Galactic Council. Let them see Zephyron efficiency, Kethresh thought. Let them see how to handle upstart species properly. Earth's response came within 6 hours. It was brief. Message received. Then nothing. Kethresh waited for the surrender, for the pleading, for the desperate negotiations that always followed such demonstrations. Instead, human space went completely silent. Their communication network ceased all external broadcasts. Their ships stopped moving. Every human station and colony simply went dark. What are they doing? Kethresh's tactical officer asked. They're in shock, Kethresh replied confidently. They've realized the futility of resistance. Give them time to organize their surrender. Days passed, then weeks. The silence from human space remained absolute. A few council members expressed concern, but Kethresh dismissed their worries. They're broken. They're trying to decide which faction will negotiate the surrender. Internal politics, nothing more. Ambassador Thelvan requested permission to contact Earth. The council denied it. The humans needed to come to them hat in hand, ready to accept their subordinate position. 1 month became 2, then 3, then 6. The Xylon refugee colonies received a different message during this time. Commander Shartok, living in exile on a remote world, was awakened in the middle of his sleep cycle by an urgent communication. The encryption was sophisticated, beyond anything the scattered Xylon possessed. When he decrypted it, he found a simple message. You tried to warn them. Thank you. When this is over, come to Earth, you'll find sanctuary there. Humanity remembers its friends. It was signed with coordinates. He recognized the exact location of the mining station where this had all begun 30 years ago. Shartok immediately tried to contact the council. He was blocked. He tried to contact the Zephyron directly. No response. In desperation, he sent messages to every delegate he could reach. The humans are preparing. The silence means they're coming. You must negotiate now while there's still time. His warnings were dismissed as the ravings of a traumatized veteran. On Earth, something unprecedented was happening. Every major corporation had ceased civilian production. Every factory, every shipyard, every research facility had been converted to a single purpose: war. Humanity had mobilized its entire economy, transforming itself into a weapon aimed at the heart of the galaxy. But it wasn't the frantic preparation of a desperate species. It was methodical, calculated. Human scientists analyzed every scrap of data they had collected on galactic species over decades of observation. They identified weaknesses in Zephyron armor. They studied Council fleet tactics. They developed weapons specifically designed to counter technologies they had only recently learned existed. The human military, small by galactic standards, was reorganized from the ground up. Traditional command structures gave way to something more fluid, more adaptive. Every officer, every soldier was taught to think independently, to innovate under pressure. Because that's what humans did best. They adapted. In orbital shipyards around Earth, Jupiter, and Saturn, new vessels took shape. They were smaller than Council warships, but faster, more maneuverable, and they carried weapons that would surprise the galaxy. Railguns that could punch through shields designed to stop energy weapons. Missile swarms controlled by AI that learned and adapted in real time. And most terrifying of all, boarding pods designed to deliver human marines directly into enemy vessels, a tactic every other species considered insane. 6 months after the destruction of Mars, the silence broke. A Zephyron patrol encountered a human fleet at the edge of their territory. Kethresh, monitoring from his flagship, felt a moment of triumph. Finally, the humans were surrendering. He opened communications, ready to accept their submission. Instead, he heard, "This is Commodore Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. For the murder of 3,200,000 civilians on Mars colony, humanity declares total war on the Zephyron hegemony. We will accept nothing less than complete capitulation. Any Zephyron who wishes to surrender individually will be granted asylum. Any who continue to fight will be eliminated. This is not negotiable. This is not a threat. This is a promise." Then the human ships opened fire. Kethresh watched in disbelief as his patrol was systematically destroyed. The human vessels moved like nothing he had ever seen. Erratic, unpredictable, yet coordinated. They targeted weapon systems first, crippling his ships before destroying them. The few that tried to escape were hunted down. Within an hour, the entire patrol was gone. The humans broadcast the engagement across all channels, ensuring the galaxy witnessed the Zephyron defeat. All fleets, converge on human space, Kethresh ordered. We will crush this rebellion immediately. But the humans didn't wait for the Zephyron to gather their strength. They struck next at a Zephyron fuel depot, then a supply station, then a minor colony. Each target was carefully chosen, strategically important but lightly defended. The Zephyron fleet chased shadows while their infrastructure crumbled, and with each victory the humans broadcast the same message. We are coming for those who gave the order. We are coming for Admiral Kethresh. We are coming for every counselor who sanctioned this attack. You killed our children. Now we will follow yours to the end of the universe. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. For the first time in millennia, they felt something they had almost forgotten: fear. Admiral Kethresh, in his flagship, finally understood what Commander Shartok had tried to tell them. The humans weren't fighting a war. They were executing a sentence, and they would not stop until judgment had been delivered. The silence from human space hadn't been shock or despair. It had been preparation. Humanity had spent 6 months transforming itself into exactly what the galaxy feared most: an enemy that would never, ever stop. The hunt begins. The Zephyron military base on Kelesthark was considered impregnable. Massive shield generators protected it from orbital bombardment. Anti-ship batteries could target vessels thousands of kilometers away. An entire division of Zephyron ground forces maintained garrison there. It was a fortress that had stood unchallenged for 2 centuries. The humans destroyed it in 17 minutes. They didn't announce their arrival. They didn't demand surrender. The first indication of attack was when the shield generators exploded simultaneously from within. Human infiltration teams had been in position for days, studying the base, learning its rhythms, waiting for the optimal moment. The moment the shields fell, the orbital strike began. But these weren't the plasma weapons or kinetic bombardments the Zephyron expected. The humans dropped what they called rod-from-God projectiles. Simple tungsten rods accelerated to incredible velocities. No shields in the galaxy were designed to stop solid matter moving at orbital speeds. The base was rubble before the garrison even understood they were under attack. This pattern repeated across Zephyron space. The humans didn't fight fair. They didn't engage in honorable combat. They struck like predators, silent, sudden, devastating. Then they vanished before reinforcements could arrive. They're avoiding our main fleet, Admiral Kethresh observed, studying the tactical map. Red markers indicated destroyed or damaged facilities. There were dozens now, scattered across the hegemony. They know they can't defeat us in direct combat, so they nibble at the edges like scavengers. His tactical officer wasn't so sure. Admiral, the targets aren't random. They've hit every major fuel depot in the outer systems. They've destroyed 17 supply convoys. They've systematically eliminated our forward operating bases. They're not avoiding a fight, they're preparing for one. Nonsense. We outnumber them 100 to 1. That's what the Xylon thought, sir. Kethresh struck the officer, sending him sprawling. Never compare us to those failures. The Zephyron are the finest military force in the galaxy. These humans are raiders, nothing more. When we find their home, we'll burn it like we burned Mars. But finding human ships proved impossible. They didn't operate from fixed bases anymore. Their fleet was completely mobile, supplied by ships that appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. Human vessels didn't have traditional life support systems. The crews wore sealed suits, allowing their ships to vent atmosphere and run cold, making them nearly invisible to sensors. The psychological impact was devastating. Every Zephyron commander knew the humans were out there, watching, waiting. But they never knew when or where the next strike would come. Paranoia spread through the fleet. Ships opened fire on sensor ghosts. Officers saw enemies in every shadow. Then the humans introduced a new terror: the message torpedoes. These weren't weapons. They were communication devices shot directly at Zephyron vessels. They contained recordings from Mars colony, the final moments of the humans who died there. Children crying for parents. Families huddled together as the atmosphere vented. the screams of 3 million people. Each torpedo ended with the same message. You will answer for this. Every single one of you. Some Zephyrin crews went mad. Others deserted. A few even surrendered to human forces, seeking the asylum that Commodore Chen had promised. The humans kept their word. Surrendered Zephyron were treated according to the rules of war, given medical attention, adequate food, and safe internment. This was broadcast across the galaxy. The message was clear. The humans weren't monsters. They were just implacable. Surrender and live, fight and die. The Galactic Council watched the Zephyron hegemony crumble and finally understood their mistake. Emergency sessions convened daily. Various species offered to mediate. The humans rejected every attempt. There's nothing to mediate, Admiral William Foster, the overall commander of human forces, told the Council representatives. The Zephyron murdered 3 million civilians in an unprovoked attack. That debt will be paid in full. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier that participated in or supported that attack will be eliminated. When the Zephyron leadership surrenders unconditionally, when they stand trial for their crimes, then and only then will we negotiate terms. You're demanding regime change, Ambassador Thelvan protested. The Council cannot allow one species to dictate the government of another. The Council allowed the Zephyron to commit genocide, Foster replied coldly. You sanctioned our people, isolated us, created the conditions that made them think they could attack us with impunity. You're complicit. All of you. Be grateful we're choosing to punish only those directly responsible. This is madness, another counselor shouted. You're one species against the galaxy. You cannot sustain this war. We're not trying to sustain it. We're trying to win it, and we will. Because unlike you, we don't calculate cost versus benefit. We don't weigh profit against loss. You killed our children. We'll hunt yours to the end of the universe if we must. That's not a negotiating position. That's a fact. The Council tried offering the Zephyron sanctuary. Several species opened their borders, allowing Zephyron civilians to flee the human advance. The humans tracked them anyway. A Zephyron transport carrying refugees entered Karathi space, seeking protection. The Karathi fleet moved to intercept human pursuit ships. Commodore Chen opened communications with Ambassador Thelvan personally. Ambassador, we have no quarrel with the Karathi, but those ships contain war criminals. Surrender them to us or move aside. We will not ask twice. You dare threaten us? The Karathi Empire has stood for 10,000 years. Then it would be a shame to end it over ships full of genocidal murderers. Your choice, Ambassador. But choose quickly. My Marines are already launching. Thelvan watched in horror as human boarding pods accelerated toward the refugee ships. The Karathi fleet moved to intercept. Warning shots were fired. The humans didn't even slow down. They're insane, his tactical officer whispered. They'll die before they reach the transports. But the boarding pods weren't trying to survive. They were missiles with humans inside. As Karathi point defense destroyed most of them, a few got through. Just a few was all they needed. Human Marines, the galaxy learned, were terrifying in close combat. Enhanced with genetic modifications and equipped with powered armor, they tore through Zephyron defenders like a force of nature. Within minutes, they had seized control of the transports. Chen's voice came over communications again. Ambassador, we've secured the war criminals. We're departing your space now. Thank you for your cooperation. The sarcasm was evident even through the translator. The Karathi fleet hadn't fired a single shot in anger. They simply watched as the humans took what they came for and left. Thelvan realized with sinking horror that his empire had just been humiliated without even fighting back. Because fighting back meant war with humanity, and nobody wanted that. The incident sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The humans had violated neutral space, seized ships under another species' protection, and faced no consequences. Because the alternative, going to war with an enemy that never stopped, never forgave, and never forgot, was unthinkable. Other species quietly stopped offering sanctuary to the Zephyron. Better to let humanity have its revenge than risk becoming the next target. Admiral Kathresh, watching his empire dissolve around him, finally understood. The humans weren't waging war in any conventional sense. They were executing a sentence. They had decided the Zephyron would pay for Mars, and nothing in the galaxy would stop them from collecting that debt. He recorded a message to his government. Surrender. Immediately. Unconditionally. before they decide that individual surrender isn't enough, and they want the extinction of our entire species. But it was already too late. The humans had tasted victory and they were just getting started. The Council's mistake. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going for 3 days straight. Holographic displays showed the deteriorating situation in Zephyron space. Nearly 40% of their territory was now under human control or blockade. The once mighty hegemony was collapsing, and with it, the foundations of galactic order. "We cannot allow this to continue," Councillor Vexitra declared, his armor plates clattering with agitation. Though Zephyron himself, he had been quick to distance himself from Admiral Cathresh's actions. A single species cannot be allowed to dictate terms to the entire galaxy. Today they destroy the Zephyron. Tomorrow they come for the rest of us. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Fear had replaced the arrogance that once dominated council proceedings. The humans had done the impossible. They had made the galaxy's ancient civilizations afraid. Ambassador Thelvan stood, his forearms raised for attention. "Perhaps we should negotiate. The humans have stated their terms clearly. They want those responsible for the Mars massacre to stand trial. If we facilitate this, negotiate." Vextra cut him off. "They violated Karathi space. They seized ships under council protection. They act like pirates and you want to reward them? They act like a species that's been grievously wronged," Thelvan countered. "We sanctioned them. We isolated them. We created the conditions that led Cathresh to believe he could commit genocide without consequence. Perhaps our guilt enough." The voice belonged to High Counselor Zix, the eldest being in the chamber. His species, the Lumina Collective, had guided the council for millennia. "Ambassador Thelvan, your sympathy for these primitives clouds your judgment. We face not a moral question, but a practical one. How do we stop them?" "We can't," Commander Shartok's voice echoed from the gallery where observers sat. All eyes turned to the scarred Xylon veteran. "I told you this would happen. I warned you. You are not recognized to speak, Commander," Zix said coldly. "Then let me speak anyway." Shartok limped down to the chamber floor. No one stopped him. "You asked how to stop them. You can't, not with war, not with threats. The only way to stop humanity is to give them what they want, justice for their dead. But you won't do that because it means admitting you were wrong. And species like yours don't admit mistakes." "The Xylon learned to submit?" Vextra sneered. "We will not make the same error." "We didn't submit, we were destroyed. Our civilization is gone. We exist now only as refugees, scattered across the galaxy, always looking over our shoulders because we know they're still hunting us. You're about to make the same mistake we did. You're going to fight them, and you're going to lose." The council erupted in angry denials. High Counselor Zix called for order, his crystalline form glowing with irritation. "The council has made its decision. We will assemble a coalition fleet. Every member species will contribute ships. We will corner the human fleet and destroy it. Then we will blockade Earth itself and bring these upstarts to heel." "How many ships?" someone asked. "All of them," Zix replied. "We will gather the largest military force in galactic history. 127 species, thousands of vessels. The humans cannot stand against the combined might of civilized space." Over the following weeks, the coalition fleet assembled at the Kepler nebula, a neutral meeting point equidistant from major council territories. It was an armada beyond imagination. Dreadnoughts that dwarfed cities, carriers that held thousands of fighters, weapon platforms capable of sterilizing planets. The combined firepower could destroy solar systems. The humans had perhaps 200 ships. The coalition had over 10,000. "They'll run," Admiral Brextar, the coalition commander, predicted confidently. "When they see what we've assembled, they'll flee back to Earth. Then we'll follow and end this farce." But the humans didn't run. They came directly toward the coalition fleet, their small force dwarfed by the assembled might arrayed against them. Every sensor locked onto them, every weapon charged. The trap was set. Admiral William Foster opened communications from his flagship, the UEDS Retribution. His image appeared on every ship's display, a human male middle-aged by their standards with gray hair and tired eyes. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like someone who had seen too much death. "Coalition forces, this is Admiral Foster. You have assembled here to stop us from pursuing justice for the Mars massacre. You claim to represent civilized space, but you defend genocidal murderers. You had a choice to stand with us against atrocity, or to stand with those who commit it. You chose poorly. What happens next is on you. Surrender, Admiral, Brextar responded. Your species has fought well, but this is over. You cannot defeat us all. No, Foster agreed. We can't. But we can hurt you badly enough that you'll never forget this day. Humanity doesn't need to win, Admiral. We just need to make victory so costly that you'll never provoke us again. Fire, Brexatar ordered. The Coalition fleet opened up with enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. Energy weapons and kinetic projectiles filled space, a wall of destruction converging on the human fleet. It should have been instant annihilation. Instead, the human ships scattered like a school of fish, moving in patterns that defied tactical prediction. Their defensive systems, strange clouds of metallic chaff, electromagnetic pulses, decoy drones, confused targeting systems. Ships that should have been destroyed simply weren't where the weapons expected them to be, and then the humans returned fire. Railgun rounds punched through shields that had stopped energy weapons for centuries. The Coalition fleet had designed their defenses around the known technologies of galactic warfare. Humanity had developed something different. Simple kinetic weapons accelerated to ridiculous velocities. Too fast for point defense to track, too solid for shields to deflect. Impossible. Brexter watched as a Kwarathi dreadnought, one of the most powerful ships in the galaxy, was torn apart by a single railgun salvo. How are they doing this? His tactical officer had the answer. Admiral, they're using artificial intelligence. Not VI like we use for calculations, actual AI that learns and adapts. It's predicting our movements, optimizing their firing solutions in real time. That's forbidden. AI warfare is banned under the Treaty of... They never signed the treaty, sir. The battle devolved into chaos. The Coalition fleet had numerical superiority, but the humans fought with a ferocity and innovation that negated the advantage. Worse, they targeted command ships specifically, disrupting coordination. The carefully planned engagement became a brawl. Then the human Marines launched. Boarding actions were considered suicide in modern warfare. Defenses were too strong, casualties too high. But the humans didn't seem to care about casualties. They rammed their boarding craft directly into enemy vessels, breaching hulls, fighting their way through corridors in combat scenarios every other species considered insane. Inside the ships, human Marines were devastating. Enhanced strength, faster reflexes, and most terrifying of all, they worked together with an efficiency that suggested hive mind coordination. They seized control of weapons systems and turned them on the Coalition fleet. They targeted life support, forcing evacuations. They planted explosives and turned mighty warships into floating tombs. A Lumina cruiser was boarded by just 12 human Marines. They captured the vessel in 40 minutes. The entire crew of 3,000 surrendered rather than continue fighting the demons in powered armor, who moved through their ship like death incarnate. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, the Coalition fleet had been shattered. Nearly 40% of the ships were destroyed or captured. The rest were fleeing in disorder. The humans had taken casualties too. Almost a third of their fleet was gone. But they had won. Admiral Foster's battered face appeared on communications once more. This was your warning. Stay out of our way. Every species that continues to shelter Zephyron war criminals will be considered hostile. Every ship that moves against us will be destroyed. We didn't want this war, but you forced it on us. Now you'll live with the consequences. The Coalition forces ran. The mighty civilizations of the galaxy fled before 200 human ships. And as they ran, a new message spread through their ranks, one that would echo across the stars. The humans don't fight fair. They don't follow rules. They use forbidden weapons, suicidal tactics, and they never stop. We cannot defeat them. We can only hope they'll be satisfied with the Zephyron and leave the rest of us alone. High Counselor Zix watched the retreating fleet from his command vessel. For the first time in his species' 50,000-year history, Illumina felt despair. Commander Shartok had been right. They had awakened something terrible, and now there was no way to put it back to sleep. Until it was too late. 20 years had passed since the Battle of Kepler Nebula. The galaxy was unrecognizable. The Galactic Council no longer existed. The Grand Chamber on Concordia Prime stood empty, its crystalline walls dark and lifeless. The species that once ruled the stars were too busy defending their own worlds to maintain the illusion of unified government. The age of galactic civilization was over, replaced by an era of human dominance. The Zephyran hegemony was gone. Not just defeated, extinct. Humanity had hunted them across 3 generations, tracking down every ship, every colony, every individual who bore Zephyran genetic markers. It took 15 years, but they succeeded. The last Zephyran died on a remote ice moon, cornered by human marines who had spent their entire lives training for that moment. When it was done, humanity broadcast a simple message to the galaxy. Justice has been served. Mars is avenged. Let no species ever doubt that humanity keeps its promises. Other civilizations scrambled to make peace. Some succeeded. The Karathi Empire, humbled but not destroyed, had sworn fealty to humanity in exchange for protection. Ambassador Thelvan, the only council member who had consistently advocated for negotiation, now served as humanity's primary liaison to the surviving galactic species. His forearms bore the scars of the new reality, but he had kept his people safe. The Lumina Collective, once the galaxy's eldest civilization, had retreated to their core systems and sealed their borders. They wanted nothing to do with humanity, and humanity, satisfied with their submission, left them alone. High Counselor Zix had died shortly after the war. Some said of grief, others said of shame. His species had learned what Shartok tried to teach them. Some enemies cannot be reasoned with, only avoided. Dozens of other species continued to resist. They fought guerrilla campaigns, hit-and-run attacks, anything to slow the human expansion. But humanity had learned from the Zephyran campaign. They had refined their tactics, improved their weapons, and most importantly, they had established themselves as the galaxy's new order. Human bases dotted the major trade routes. Human fleets patrolled the shipping lanes. Human law governed disputes between species. It was empire by another name, though humanity never used that word. They called it the Pax Humana, human peace. But everyone knew what it really was. The strong doing what they wanted, the weak suffering what they must. The very principle the old council had operated on, now with humanity at the top. On a forgotten refugee colony at the galaxy's edge, Commander Shartok sat in his modest dwelling, watching the news broadcasts. He was ancient now by Xylon standards, his scales dull with age, his cybernetic eye failing, but his mind remained sharp enough to appreciate the irony of what he was witnessing. A human journalist was interviewing him, part of a documentary series about the war. The young woman, barely 30, had never known a galaxy where humanity wasn't the dominant power. To her, the old council was ancient history. Commander Shartok, you tried to warn the council about humanity. Why do you think they didn't listen? Shartok's laugh was bitter. They didn't listen because they couldn't imagine losing. The Lumina had stood for 50,000 years, the Karathi for 10,000. The Zephyran had conquered 40 systems. They thought themselves immortal, invincible. How could primitives from a single world possibly threaten them? But you knew better. You'd fought humanity before. I knew, yes. But even I didn't understand. Not really. I thought you were simply tenacious, unwilling to accept defeat. I didn't realize until much later that defeat wasn't even a concept you acknowledged. You don't fight wars to win or lose. You fight them to conclusion. Complete, total, absolute conclusion. The journalist nodded, making notes. The Zephyran extinction has been controversial. Some species see it as justice. Others call it genocide. It was both, Shartok said simply. The Zephyran committed genocide on Mars. Humanity responded in kind. The irony is that the Council could have prevented it all. If they had accepted your application for membership, if they had treated you as equals, none of this would have happened. 3 million humans would still be alive. The Zephyran would still exist as a species. The galaxy would still have its council. Do you think the Council's dissolution was inevitable? The moment they laughed at my warning, yes. They sealed their fate with their arrogance. They thought the galaxy revolved around them, that they could dictate terms to everyone. Then they met a species that simply didn't care about the old order. You tore down their carefully constructed civilization and built something new on its ruins. The journalist hesitated, then asked, "Do you hate us? For what we've done?" Shartok was quiet for a long moment. "No," he said finally. "I pity you. Because now you're what we were, the dominant power, convinced of your rightness, certain of your superiority. And someday, somewhere, you'll encounter a species even more stubborn than you are. Then you'll learn what we learned. That dominance is always temporary, that empires always fall, and that the strong eventually become weak. The question is whether you'll have the wisdom to recognize the warning signs. You think humanity will fall? Everything falls eventually. The only question is how far and how hard. He gestured to the viewing screen, where news reports showed human fleets patrolling conquered territories. You've built your peace on fear and military might, just like the Council did. You've made the same mistakes they made. The cycle continues. After the interview ended and the journalist left, Shartok sat alone with his thoughts. A message notification appeared on his personal comm, one he'd been expecting. It was from Earth, from the Office of Veteran Affairs. Commander Shartok, as promised, we extend permanent sanctuary to you and any surviving Xylon who wish it. You tried to prevent this war. Though you failed, we remember and honor that attempt. If you wish to come to Earth, coordinates are attached. You and your people will be safe here. Humanity keeps its promises. Shartok stared at the message for a long time. The invitation was genuine, he knew. Humanity did keep its promises, for good or ill. They had promised to avenge Mars, and they had. They had promised to hunt the Zephyron forever, and they had. Now they promised safety to those who had tried to help, and they would honor that too. But accepting meant acknowledging humanity's victory, becoming part of their new order. It meant living under the shadow of the species that had destroyed the galaxy he knew. In the end, he declined. Better to live out his remaining years in obscurity, a relic of a bygone age, than to participate in the empire that had risen from the ashes. His final act was to record a message, to be broadcast across the galaxy after his death. In it, he spoke directly to the species of the future whenever they might exist. I am Commander Shartok of the Xylon Confederacy. I witnessed the fall of the Galactic Council and the rise of human dominance. I tried to warn them what was coming. They laughed. They thought themselves invincible. They learned too late that the galaxy belongs not to the oldest or the strongest, but to those too stubborn to accept defeat. My warning to you, whoever you are, whatever age you live in, when you encounter a species that fights not for profit or glory or territory, but for abstract concepts like justice and revenge, do not provoke them. When you meet beings who pass grudges down through generations like family heirlooms, who teach their children to remember every slight and every loss, leave them alone. The Council laughed at my warning. They said humans would learn, as all species do, that some conflicts cannot be won. They were wrong. Humans don't learn to accept loss. They learn from loss, adapt because of it, grow stronger through it. Every defeat makes them more dangerous. Every setback teaches them new tactics. We thought we were fighting warriors. We were fighting survivors. And survivors, by definition, do whatever it takes to survive. The galaxy learned this truth too late. Learn from our mistake. When someone warns you about humans or any species like them, listen. Because by the time you realize they were right, it will already be too late. Shartok died 3 weeks later, alone in his small dwelling on a forgotten world. The message was broadcast as he requested. A warning from the past to the future. A reminder that empires rise and fall, but the lessons they teach endure. On Earth, in a memorial park built on the site of the first settlement, 3 million names were carved in stone, every person who died on Mars. Beneath them, a simple inscription: they came in peace. They died in war. We will never forget. We will never forgive. We will never stop. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, human ships continued their eternal patrol, watching for threats, maintaining order, enforcing the Pax Humana. The humans had become what they destroyed. The galaxy's rulers, its enforcers, its judge and jury. The cycle was complete. The warned had become the warning. And the galaxy, bloodied and broken, had learned its lesson too late. Never provoke a species that hunts forever.